Obi-Wan Kenobi was a middle-aged human male born 57 years before the Battle of Yavin. As with most Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi would be taken at an early age from his homeworld of Stujon. He would train alongside several notable Jedi prospects, such as Quinlan Vos and Siri Tachi, the latter of which he would share a deep romantic connection with. Though Obi-Wan progressed quickly through the ranks of the Padawan contemporaries, he was not selected as an apprentice. Instead, he was sent into the Jedi Service Corps on Bonomir. Fortunately, a Jedi Master named Qui-Gon Jinn would be assigned to the planet on a mission and was attacked by a criminal organization led by his former student. Obi-Wan helped him to ruin their plans, and from that time on, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi became master and apprentice. Throughout the years, they would go on many missions together, notable examples being their uprooting of the criminal plans of Xanatos, participation in the Stark Hyperspace War, and of course, the Battle of Naboo. It was here that Kenobi would face and defeat his first Sith, Darth Maul, though his master fell to their opponent's blade. Obi-Wan would be promoted to knighthood for his accomplishment, immediately taking on his first and only apprentice in Anakin Skywalker, per the dying request of Qui-Gon Jinn, who believed him to be the chosen one of prophecy. Together, Kenobi and Skywalker grew, completing many missions and eventually playing a pivotal role in the opening battle of the Clone Wars. They would go on to be the best duo the Jedi Order had to offer, remaining partnered together even after Skywalker's knighthood. Obi-Wan will become one of the go-to masters of the Order, attaining a seat on the High Council, marking himself as the model Jedi.
When the old Sith Empire invaded the Galactic Republic 3,681 years before the Battle of Yavin, one Sith Lord rose to prominence as one of their greatest war heroes. Born Varadun, Darth Malgus was a powerful Sith Lord within this resurgent empire. Notably, Malgus, alongside his master Vindican, was the first Sith to cross blades with a Jedi in over 300 years, engaging the future Jedi Grandmaster Satele Shan and killing her teacher, Battlemaster Kaosen Darach. At the conclusion of the battle, Malgus executed the wounded Vindican and assumed his mantle. Darth Malgus went on to become a noted Sith war hero, leading Sith forces to victory on such notable battlefronts as Alderaan and others. However, he still suffered his share of defeats, and was severely injured during the Republic recapture of Alderaan. Malgus made a speedy recovery, and went on to lead the sack of the Jedi Temple during the Sith assault on Coruscant. Despite this great victory, Malgus was infuriated by the resulting Treaty of Coruscant, considering peace with the Jedi and the Republic, or the very concept of peace for that matter, unthinkable. After the apparent death of Emperor Vitiate, Malgus became one of the Sith warlords contending for the throne, his actions earning him the moniker Malgus the Betrayer. Ultimately, his bid was cut short by a Republic strike team, and though he was apparently killed, rumors of his survival continued to persist.
As with all my videos, including this collaboration with Jensaarai1, we will be examining these characters at their primes. This does not always necessarily mean their prime age, but their prime in regards to their lightsaber and force abilities. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, this will be his time during Revenge of the Sith, at the tail end of the Clone Wars. For Darth Malgus, this would also be at the tail end of his own war, just after the sacking of the Jedi Temple. As a 38-year-old human male, Obi-Wan Kenobi did not cut a very imposing figure, being athletic but thin and lightly built. In a physical sense, he never defined himself as especially swift, strong, or dexterous, being competent but not exceptional. What he did have was resiliency. Throughout the Clone Wars, Kenobi took massive amounts of punishment, yet he continued to man up. He has survived laser wounds, blunt force trauma from both physical and telekinetic attacks, attacked by ravenous beasts, months of torture, and numerous lightsaber wounds. All he needed was a week in the bacta tank, and he was back at it without a blink of an eye. In short, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a sponge of pain, bouncing back as though nothing had happened at all. This would extend to his fantastic endurance, to the point where he could continue to fight on the battlefield for hours and wage marathon lightsaber duels, as evidenced by his fights with Darth Maul and Vader. As he would say to General Grievous, "I rarely tire." Exhaustion is a rarity where Obi-Wan Kenobi is concerned, his combination of physical conditioning and force-based augmentation making him a tank. Nothing short of a fatal blow is going to take him out of a fight.
A human male, Darth Malgus was 60 years of age by the end of the Cold War in 3642 BBY, yet he retained a high level of physical ability despite his age, though this was likely due to his extensive cybernetics. A well-built individual, Malgus possessed very high levels of speed, agility, endurance, and strength, these attributes allowing him to develop into one of the most formidable Sith warriors of his day. He demonstrated an almost preternatural ability to absorb punishment, shrugging off an RPG to the face and surviving a live burial under hundreds of tons of rock and stone. Despite the fact that treatment for these injuries would call for extensive cybernetic reconstruction and implantation, he fought and killed 2 Jedi immediately after the incident and prior to receiving any medical attention. Malgus's cybernetics didn't appear to be vulnerable to force lightning or any other electrical discharges, as he'd been struck by lightning several times after his rebuild and has almost always been able to shrug it off. It's mentioned in the encyclopedia that many Sith willingly opt for life support systems built into their armor or cybernetically implanted in their bodies, boosting their endurance and physical performance. I imagine that Malgus's cybernetics performed a similar function, his breath mask specifically being noted for improving his stamina and energy levels in combat due to the higher oxygen content of the air he breathed. Additionally, Malgus displayed many of the signs of the extensive physical degeneration brought on by deep immersion in the dark side of the Force, namely the deathly pallor, the severe premature aging, and the glowing yellow eyes, though the extent to which his capabilities have been affected, if at all, is unknown, as he is already largely sustained by cybernetics due to his wartime injuries. Literally and figuratively speaking, Darth Malgus was a tank, held together by machines, fury, and an obsession with revenge.
This one is relatively simple to call. Obi-Wan Kenobi may be extremely tough and quick to bounce back from severe injury, but he still has his limits, and in terms of his physical performance, isn't really anything to write home about.
By contrast, Darth Malgus is an absolute tank who can shrug off horrifying amounts of damage and keep on chugging. Prior to his cybernetic rebuild, it took live burial under a frickin' mountain to stop him. At this point in his life and career, we don't even know what will slow him down.
Malgus certainly has aged gracefully, having burnt the candle from both ends of his life, but his cybernetics more than make up for this, giving him a massive advantage over almost any opponent.
Darth Malgus gets the physical edge.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is not one of the strongest Force wielders of his era, but he makes up for this by being one of the craftiest. Like his master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Anakin Skywalker, he was a dedicated lightsaber duelist, first and foremost, his use of the Force only being a supplement rather than a primary. This would extend to his abilities with the common Jedi mind trick and the rare beast manipulation. In keeping with his emphasis on martial arts, he was an extremely capable user of Force-based physical augmentation, enabling superhuman feats of strength and speed, though in particular, he enhances his durability and stamina, favoring the marathon rather than quick bursts of power. His talents also afford him some skill with Tuna Menace, able to repel blaster bolts, projectiles, and even blasts from a flamethrower, though he was limited in his defense against the intense energy of lightsabers and Force lightning. One of his more crafty talents would be displayed in his fight with Anakin Skywalker, where he was able to use his knowledge of Metru Deru to force Anakin's mechanical hand to let go of his lightsaber, briefly disarming him. Though more crafty than powerful, he is no pushover when it comes to telekinesis. He was able to blast General Grievous through the air with ease, match the raw power of Darth Vader during their fight on Mustafar, and was able to blast apart the bounty hunter Dirge with a Force repulse. Obi-Wan was unusual in that he was one of the rare Jedi that fought with the power of the living Force, his trust and familiarity with it enabling him to achieve astounding feats, typically beyond the use of his skill level. Perhaps the most notable example of this is his final victory over General Grievous. In the Revenge of the Sith novelization, it states, "It was not Obi-Wan who would defeat them. Obi-Wan wasn't even fighting. He was only a vessel, emptied of self. The Force, shaped by his skill and guided by his clarity of mind, fought through him." This would be the ideal state of mind for any Jedi to be in, but not all could achieve such a renowned level of trust. Most of the more powerful masters exerted their own will over the Force, using it respectfully, but as a tool. Obi-Wan, one of the most dedicated Jedi to the Jedi Code and the Force's will, could give himself over entirely, and it made the Force a more powerful ally for him than for most. Because of his passive use of the Force, he did not generate a powerful Force barrier in combat. In his final duel with Dooku, he and Anakin managed to box the Count in, driving him onto his back foot, but the Sith Lord was able to telekinetically shove Kenobi aside with relative ease. Almost immediately afterwards, Dooku caught Kenobi in a Force grip and ragdolled him, tossing him aside and completely disabling him. This is not an isolated case, as his defenses have been breached on multiple occasions by individuals such as Darth Maul and Asajj Ventress. Obi-Wan Kenobi's primary asset as a Force wielder is his attunement to it, not the strength he commands. His greatest power was his ability to transcend the physical plane and maintain his identity after death, becoming a Force spirit. This was an invaluable skill, as he was able to guide Luke Skywalker during the Galactic Rebellion. But his combative applications, especially in his defense, left much to be desired.